Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and one of the questions I've been getting lately when I've done a couple different videos, people start asking me with almost no context, how many reps and sets should I get? I think it's important for people to understand that such a vague question can never be answered, and people need to understand that there is no ideal reps and sets. There's not even an ideal reps and sets that you should be using next month, even if you found the ideal ones for this month. That's not how training works when you're really trying to push yourself and make gains. So let me put on my +5 head of weaponsmithing, work on scaling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. People need to understand there's a few things going on with this sort of question of you can find a starting point. You know, your best starting point is to look at different programs for someone of your basic level of experience and goals that have already been written, that are proven, and if you don't want to run those programs, use those to get an idea. And what people need to understand, most novice programs stay pretty constant. People in their first year of gains, you just run them on linear progression. Your goal for the first year for someone lifting is to just add weight to the bar over and over and over and over in the same rep and set scheme. You know what? It probably doesn't matter that much what they do. 5x5, 3x10, 4x8. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not that difficult to program for novice lifters. Some programs will get better gains than others, but most of them, if they're decent, will eventually get them through their new gains. It's just for one person, they might do it in 10 months on one program, and another one it takes 18 months. But what we need to look at, for example, I'll give you guys a perfect example of a program that never uses the same sets or reps from week to week. And it's a program that I wrote a couple years back, and it's called the Off-Season Linear Periodization Intermediate Strength Program number 1. This one I wrote as a 12-week program, a 12-week linear periodization to get athletes who are competitive athletes of some type, usually football players, MMA fighters, wrestlers, things like that, who need to get bigger and stronger during their off-season when they're not competing. Because usually you put on size and strength in the off-season, and then you maintain performance elements in in-season, and you go to some sort of concurrent training would be ideal. But if you guys look at the program, week 1 is 3 sets of 10. Week 2, 4 sets of 10. Week 3, 5 sets of 10. I don't know, what is someone's ideal rep and set scheme? Same thing, we go to the next 4-week block. It goes 3x8, then 4x8, then 5x8 on their main exercises. All right, so we're taking 10 reps, and we're increasing sets every week. Then we drop down, go back to 3 sets again with a heavier weight, because we've increased it 5% on the intensity, gone to 8 reps. Goes 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets over the course of 3 weeks. Same thing, we drop down to 5 reps, repeat the pattern. 10th week we go to 3 reps, 3x3, which is going to be maximum strength. Week 11, we do 90% with singles, and then we test the maxes. Then the 12th week is a deload. And then you would start the cycle over again if you had another 12 weeks to run, but obviously you would be stronger and recalculate your numbers. So in the context of that, when someone says, how many reps and sets should I do? I just have a program that I wrote right there that I give out for free for intermediate lifters. Intermediate lifters who need to gain size and strength quickly. The reps and sets are not repeated ever at any point for 12 weeks. In a 12-week program, every single week, it's a completely different rep and set scheme. So when people step back and ask that question, think about that for a moment. Do you honestly think, unless you're running some sort of very slow linear progression system, which there are ones out there, I've advocated for some people doing 3 sets of 5 on their big lifts and adding a rep whenever they're strong enough to do so with good form, adding a rep, and when they get to 10, go back down to 5 and add a certain amount of weight, add 5% to the bar, and repeat the process. That's a viable system, but that's linear progression. But you're still working with the same basic rep and set scheme, but you're just trying to progress linearly using reps first, and then when you get to a certain point, resetting down and adding weight to the bar. So people need to understand reps and sets. There is no ideal reps and sets. Everything's about progression. You should always be getting better. That's the whole point. When you get caught up in reps and sets, without actually having them set up in a pattern that you plan on progressing with, that's completely worthless. It doesn't even matter that much. Seriously, guys get way bent out of shape about this. And we have studies that show that when tonnage was equal, like the one Brad Schoenfeld did, 7 sets of 3 reps, 7 sets of 3 reps versus another group that did 3 sets of 10. All right, we're doing 3 rep sets versus 10 rep sets. 21 reps versus 30 per workout, but when the weight was heavy enough that when you added up the total tonnage, that they equal the same amount of weight moved over the course of the workout, they both gained the same amount of muscle mass. They gained the same amount of muscle mass. Obviously, the 3 rep group gained slightly more strength, also burned out slightly easier. So in light of that, when people are asking that, step back and think about that for a moment. Do you really think the reps and sets that you pick, particularly for something like hypertrophy, really matter that much? What you need to be thinking of in terms of how far am I from my personal maximum recoverable volume. Now, there's a reason we don't do as much volume for people, or we undulate volume as you get more advanced. Notice my novice 5x5. If you look at the numbers for the week, people are actually usually doing a lot more actual reps are being done than most of the weeks versus this intermediate program. But this intermediate program, I have to back them down. Every 3 weeks, your tonnage drops. So your tonnage goes up dramatically, then drops, then back up, then drops. The tonnage itself is kept fairly constant throughout this program, especially if you look at the first weeks each time. But we're getting stronger through it. But we actually change the total tonnage every single week. It increases in an undulating manner. And people need to consider that. Now, why is there probably a little less volume in this? Because it isn't less volume, because people are stronger. And that's what people need to understand. When we're talking about maximum recoverable volume, there's an individual factor. And people say, well, how do I find my maximum recoverable volume? Well, when you start seeing signs of overreaching, you know that you've reached it. There's your baseline. Add up all your numbers of what you've been doing, and that'll give you a baseline for your different lifts, what your maximum recoverable volume is. Because it is a function of strength versus the amount of total reps that you're doing. Because strength does matter. People don't get that. They don't understand that for someone at a certain strength level, 3 sets of 10, if you're doing 100 pounds on an exercise, is 50% of the volume of 3 sets of 10 of someone who's doing 200 pounds. Now, people say, but doesn't your recovery and work capacity go up as you gain strength? Yes, but it doesn't go up linearly. Meaning, when you've gained twice the strength that you had at a certain point, meaning you can deadlift 500 pounds versus your 250. All right, you can bench press 260 pounds versus the 130 you used to bench. When you've doubled your strength, you haven't doubled your work capacity. You haven't doubled your recovery. The stronger you are, the easier it is for you to generate enough tonnage to overreach and to start exceeding what you're capable of recovering from. And people need to understand exceeding what you're capable of recovering from for short periods of time and then backing off can actually be beneficial. All right, that can actually give better progress than always staying below what you're capable of recovering from. However, there's lifestyle factors to factor in too. If you don't use any sort of dual factory recovery model to where you push past what you can recover from and then back off a little bit, instead you just stay within your recovery and just slowly move forward, yeah, you might make slower progress, but you're also going to be less prone to injury. A lower chance of injuries, and injuries should be rare if you're doing everything right anyways. As long as you're not chronically overreaching, as long as you're using good technique, your injury rate's low. But fatigue can cause injuries due to bad technique, maybe some overuse in tendons. It can happen. But more importantly, you're usually going to feel a bit better. People who do training programs where they do overreach periodically, you are going to be more fatigued. It can affect other aspects of your life. Now, if you don't have a particularly important job, or a high-stress job, or some job to where minor mistakes can really get you into trouble or cost you your job or get someone else harmed or whatever. Like if you're a paramedic, doing programs that have overreaching in them, probably not a good idea. You make a mistake, someone dies because you were fatigued. You're a college student who has finals coming up. You have important tests. and that degree is actually important to you. You're not there fucking off mommy and daddy's money. You're actually there because you need that degree. You need to finish school. It's something important to you that's going to matter for your career, matter for what you want to do with your life. Programs that have you overreaching might not be the best of ideas for you. Any of these sort of people, you might need to stay below your maximum recoverable volume. You're a competitive athlete, and that is more important to you than certain other things. Maybe you're a competitive power lifter. Maybe you're trying to get a scholarship for football. Maybe you're a scholarship athlete who needs to perform their best to keep their scholarship. All right, that's when you might have to consider programs that are overreaching and underreaching models. This program is overreaching, by the way. So this off-season program, off-season implies you're an athlete. The average lifter probably doesn't need to train this hard just to gain muscle quickly. All right, so people need to understand that difference. So in context, the questions like how many reps and sets should I do is a completely meaningless question. How is anybody ever going to answer that for you? You need to understand training programming to answer something like that. And if you can't, then you need to go back to just some basic linear type program where you do reps and sets that you're capable of handling and just slowly progress. Just slowly progress. That's probably the best approach for someone who even needs to ask that question, because you probably don't know enough about training programming to be doing anything fairly advanced without overreaching, without messing stuff up. Just stick with something basic. I don't know, 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 8, whatever, and just try to progress and add reps when you can, weight when you can, and don't push yourself too hard to the limit. You'll probably get good progress doing that. Don't get caught up in reps and sets. They're just tools. They're just tools for progression in the grand scheme of things. And if you're needing to ask questions like that, you're a long way from being able to write any sort of program of your own. You should probably stick with programs that other people have written. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.